create systems, not goals. This is possibly the best habit advice that has ever been uttered in this world, except for the fact that it has been uttered so many times that you cannot go 5 seconds on consistency YouTube without stumbling on another video with the exact same copy and paste title and thumbnail, all saying, set systems, not goals, set systems, not goals, set systems, not goals. And guess what? It's not even completely right. And I want to show you why this message is incomplete and why it exists by going back to where this actually started from and what these creators are leaving out in their effort to chase views, which is quite apparently working if you look at the 100x outlier scores that the views on these videos have. So what actually works? Well, yes, build systems instead of goals, but also create identities instead of systems. What do I mean? Well, let's get into it. First of all, where does this systems instead of goals idea actually come from? Well, believe it or not, the most famous habit advice comes from the most famous habit book, Atomic Habits. I actually happen to have it right here on my desk. This wasn't even scripted or part of the video, it was just standing there. But basically, in this excerpt that I've included here, it talks about why you should focus on systems instead of goals, and it outlines 4 main problems with goals. The first one is that winners and losers have the same goal. So if you are at an Olympic race, all of the people at that starting line have the same goal of becoming number 1. But what separates these people is not their goals, which is the same, it's their systems. It's how they got there, it's how they trained each day. That's the system that actually will get them the results. Second problem is that achieving a goal is only a momentary change. Meanwhile, systems are continuous and will continually increase you even after you pass that original goal threshold. Third problem is that goals restrict your happiness. Now, of course, this depends on how you frame it, but a lot of people will look at goals and say, oh, I'll be happy once I do this. Except once they do that thing, they're like, no, well, actually, it turns out I'll be happy when I do this. And it's this constant chase of goals that you think will make you happy, but in reality won't. And the final thing is that goals are at odds with long-term progress. A lot of professional athletes talk about winning the big medal that they've been working so hard to win, and then right afterwards feeling a massive slump because this single goal that has directed their life for the past years is now gone, and there's a vacuum of like any direction to drive in. Meanwhile, systems don't have that because they're continuous. And there you go. That is the entire argument of all of these videos mentioned here. So I just saved you 20 minutes of your life. You're welcome. All right, so that's all good. But what happens if we look literally 5 pages after where all of these other videos end? Well, we get to this. And this shows the layers of behavior change. So you can read all of this over here yourself, but basically it says that the first layer is the outcome-based, which is the goal-based. The second layer is the systems. So this is the not goals, but instead systems. But there's a third layer. There's a layer of not systems, but what's behind the systems? Well, it's the identity. And this is a level of, okay, it's not what, it's how, and it's not how, it's who. There's one more step to this equation that is somehow overlooked in every single video that covers this. And to make this point even clearer, he doubles down on this idea in this drawing that is taken directly from the book. These are the 2 directions of behavior change. The first one is outcome-based. This person will start with the goal and think that achieving the goal will somehow get them to do the process, which will then finally make them feel the identity. And it's all in reverse. It's like you don't win the race first, then finally feel like you are a runner. No, you have to feel like a runner, which is going to make you run, which is going to get you to win the race. It's the other way around. You start with the identity, which gets you to do these habits, which gets you the outcome that you want. And if that was not enough for you, here's a direct quote from this book. It says, behind every system of actions is a system of beliefs. Behavior that is incongruent with the self will not last. Your habits are how you embody your identity. So if it wasn't already incredibly clear, he decides, all right, let me make it clear for you with this line saying that behind every system of actions, there's a system of beliefs. And, you know, his name is James Clear, so hopefully he's good at making things clear. But he's telling people that, okay, it's not goals, it's systems, but okay, what's behind the systems? It's the beliefs, it's the identity. And just to cement this in with a few quick examples, let's say two people in the exact same position are trying to quit smoking. They're both offered a cigarette, and the first person says, "No, thank you, I'm trying to quit." The second person says, "No, thank you, I'm not a smoker." Between these two people, who is more likely to quit? Anybody who looks at this example and has the slightest sliver of common sense will look at this guy and say he is more likely to quit. But why? Why? Like, we can tell that intuitively, but why is there such a big difference between these two people? Well, because this guy is doing the action of quitting. He's trying to do the action of quitting, but he still internally has the identity of being a smoker. This guy is being the identity of not being a smoker. And for him, it's a completely different ballgame because he's not trying to quit. He's not a smoker who's, oh, I'm on my 6th day without cigarettes. It's like, no, he just doesn't smoke. That's just who he is now. And the idea of smoking is not one that even really registers in his mind as an option. So, all right, you might say, great, identity is cool. I get how this works, but how do I actually change my identity? Here's the quickest 4-step process summary I could create of a topic that's honestly really deep and complex. Basically, step 1 is to choose an identity. Simple enough. Basically, you look at, okay, what's the goal? What's the system? What is the identity I need to do the system, which will get me the goal, right? So, if the goal is to go to the gym, you might want the identity of, I'm someone who trains every day. It's really self-explanatory. You don't need to overthink this step. Step 2 is to give yourself some sort of daily reminder of this identity shift. The thing is, if you don't have a daily way to remember this, you'll just forget about it and not actually perform the identity shift. Like the first few days, you'll be super motivated. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where it's like you get super motivated about this like new skill that you're gonna learn, but then like 7 days in, you run out of motivation and then you completely forget about it, right? We don't want that. So give yourself some sort of daily reminder so that you can actually remember to stick to shifting your identity, because obviously this takes time. Like you can't shift your beliefs overnight. So you can actually get shockingly close to that. Okay, step 3. This is the actual important part. And it's finding proof for this new identity in every part of your life. Now, I'm just going to come up with a random identity for this one. Let's say you're trying to say you're someone who just loves exercise. You love doing exercise. You do exercise a lot. You're basically an athlete at this point. Okay, you need to find proof for that in every way you can. And if you can't find proof, look harder because it's always there. Here's what I mean. Let's say you walk around your house a little bit. Wonderful. That means you love exercising because walking is a form of exercise. And you consciously chose to make that choice of walking around the house when you didn't want to, which basically proves that you love doing exercise. It is a form of exercise. Sure, you might not like that form of exercise, but this is clear proof. The more creative and frequent you can get with these, the more you can turn this into some sort of game, the better it gets, because you will genuinely shock yourself how much you can find. Like for me right now, I can even say that, I must love exercise because even as I'm recording this video, I'm like flailing my hands around and like doing all this like action. If I was the type who was a couch potato, I'd just be here like, all right, here's the thing, and I'd be as still as possible. But I'm not. I'm energetic, which must mean I'm just the type of like energetic, athletic guy, right? You have to look for this everywhere. And once you give yourself reminders daily, that becomes like an automatic thing. You spot it everywhere. And you might be like, all right, why are we looking for proof? Great question. Have you ever tried affirmations? If you have they worked? And if you haven't, it's probably because you're convinced they won't work. I agree with you for the most part. Affirmations where you just go to the mirror and say something over and over again will basically have no impact on your identity, because identity is like a scale. You cast votes on either the direction of I am or I am not this thing, and to cast a specific vote in either of these directions for whether you are or are not this thing, well, you need some sort of proof. Because your brain, believe it or not, right? People try to overcomplicate this. The brain just believes what seems the most logical and what has the most proof. It believes what's most believable. It literally looks at, here's how much proof there is for this thing, here's how much proof there is for this thing has more proof, this thing must be true. You don't need to overcomplicate it any more than that. When you just say affirmations over and over again, that doesn't count as proof because you're just saying it. And if you feel like you're lying, well, you can't lie to yourself as yourself because you are yourself, so you know you're lying and you won't fall for your own lie. So just find proof. And the final part of step 3 is to create easy chances for proof. Now, this is a really big one, so I need you to internalize this. When you're trying to adopt a new identity, you should not only be looking for proof in your own life, but you should be creating opportunities for yourself to give yourself proof. If you're trying to convince yourself that you're someone who exercises every day, well then you don't need to go to the gym every day and then, have that whole New Year's resolution moment where you have a spike of motivation and then you fall back down and you can't do shit, right? You don't need that. You just need to do 10 push-ups every day. Oh, you don't want to go to the gym? That's fine. You do 10 squats and you tell yourself, look at me. I didn't go to the gym, but I still did 10 squats. And that's ample proof that I like exercise or I'm someone who exercises every day. Because I just have this standard now that I exercise every day. So before we get lost in the endless rabbit hole of identity, I just want to wrap this up here, summarize. Give yourself as much proof as possible. Proof, proof, proof. The more you notice it, the more you create it, the more you can shift your identity. That's all you need to shift your identity, and that's all. And then step 4 is to repeat this over and over again. Basically, get as much proof as you can. Now, this is a very quick, cursory explanation of how all of this works. I highly recommend getting a more in-depth look with something like the full guide I made on it. I'll definitely make sure to link it up there. And if not, if I forgot, you can definitely find it on my channel. It's one of my more recent videos. But yeah, that's the fastest explanation I could give of how to quickly change your identity. And so, finally, I wanted to end this video off by providing my own sort of update to this analogy, because as long as these videos have existed, so has this analogy of the destination and the vehicle. We have the goal, which is the destination. You need a destination, okay, but you also need a process, a vehicle that will get you there, right? So, to be fair, it is kind of shoehorned in here, and it doesn't fit perfectly, but here is an updated version of this analogy that is just more accurate and more detailed, and is something for you to keep in mind as you watch all of these other videos, to remember there's one more factor. It's not just the goal, the destination, not just the vehicle, but there has to be someone driving the vehicle. There has to be a person in the vehicle. And if the person in the vehicle says, I don't know how to drive, I'm not someone who drives, well then they can't drive. You might have the best vehicle in the world, but if you have a driver that says, oh, I am physically incapable of driving, or maybe your driver had a terrible crash before and has PTSD and he cannot drive anymore because it gives him like panic attacks, it doesn't matter. If you have the best vehicle in the world, you're not getting anywhere. And that's why you got to start with the driver. Plus, if you have a great driver and he's like a rich guy and you have a bad vehicle, well, that rich guy is just going to like buy a great vehicle, right? I know, not the most perfect analogy, but these are the circumstances I was given. I did not choose this analogy. Here's my addition to it to make it better. It's better than what it was before. Just deal with it. But with that in mind, start taking action. And if you want to learn more about concepts like this and how to actually get 100% consistent in the long term, we have a free school community with a bunch of like-minded people also trying to get consistent with their habits and grow their business. So it's completely free. It's the first link in the description. Join right now. I'll see you in there.